Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us now on the phone from Washington, D.C. is the senior U.S. Senator from Utah, Orin. He is also the ranking member, the ranking Republican on the Senate Finance Committee. Thanks for being with us, sir.
I'm glad to be with you. Appreciate the work you do.
We appreciate you being with us here. Now, Wednesday, of course, was an important day. Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius faced some tough but important questions about what you today, sir, called a debacle. And of course, I think many Americans now would agree with that. That's the health care rollout. Among the revelations from Sebelius today is that convicted felons could have been hired for these positions of these healthcare navigators. What was the most surprising thing that you learned today from the Secretary, other than that felons could have been hired for the process?
Well, I think there were a number of things that were very, very interesting. Obamacare's implementation challenges are getting worse by the day. It's not only been the healthcare.gov has been a disaster. She tried to put a good face on it, but that particular healthcare.gov is plagued with delays, errors, and faulty information. It's been over a month since its launch, and even after the administration brought in the so-called best and brightest to fix this mess, the website had another 90-minute power outage on Monday, which undoubtedly had a ripple effect, showing slowing efforts in repairing the site.
Yeah, we're also learning that there are some problems with people who are trying to call in as well. You know, we've seen the popularity of this law wane, as well as the president's popularity with the public. It's waning as well. Now, support for the law, as we talked about, is dwindling. Do you think we've reached a tipping point here where the majority of the American public are with you in the GOP? Are we about to see a groundswell of support for repealing or delaying the law, even from Democrats in Congress? And I'm talking about the ones who have not already spoken up in favor of a delay.
Well, I think the Democrats are now getting a little bit jittery because they realize that, take the Virginia race. Had we not had the shutdown caused by just very few senators up here, I think Cuccinelli, the candidate for governor, would have won, because he was down double digits 2 weeks ago, and then he started, once the shutdown was over, he was able to get back on track and point out that Obamacare is just a disaster. And, he only lost by 3 points. Had that race lasted another week and a half, 2 weeks, he would have won.
So Senator, are you saying that Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Mike Lee from your home state of Utah, they're the ones responsible for the Cuccinelli loss?
No, but I am saying that the shutdown did not help Cuccinelli. Neither did some of the criticisms of the then governor, McDonnell, I guess it was. That didn't help him too. Let's face it, the Republican Party after the shutdown took a big hit in the polls, and undoubtedly that was transferred to Cuccinelli. Now, I don't find fault with senators who really do what they believe. On the other hand, I think most people will acknowledge that was not a very good thing to do, because there was no end game in sight where we could win. And I think most people have concluded that we'd have done a lot better without that episode.
I want to get more information from you and more of your perspective about the election results in just a second, but I do want to stay with healthcare here for the time being. The trend is certainly on the GOP side in terms of waning support for the healthcare law. Now, if there is enough support, obviously we know the president won't repeal it, but if the American people really push for this and there is at least enough support to delay the law, does that set up a scenario really where it's kind of like the dog catching the car for the GOP? What happens when the American people start saying, all right, you guys have delayed or gotten rid of Obamacare. What do you have to replace the current status quo? Because some people would say that's as bad, if not worse, than the Affordable Care Act.
Well, we didn't have a terribly bad system before. Even the president this last week said that 85% of America was covered with basically by employee health insurance. So why didn't we attack the 15% and solve that problem rather than throw the whole system out with the bathwater and arrive at this terrific problem that we have now? At least 3.5 million Americans received cancellation notices from their insurance companies because their plans don't meet Obamacare's regulations. And what the president said turned out to be absolutely false. And they're still saying it, by the way, although they're saying, well, if your policy had to be changed, well, that's just BS as far as I'm concerned. They were trying to sell this bill that has a lot of flaws and is really a disaster in the eyes of most people who look at it seriously. The Washington Post last week said experts are estimating roughly 7 to 12 million people won't have the option to renew their health care coverage. I think it's going to be higher than that. You know, and if you think this drastic drop in coverage that we're now seeing is bad, well, you just wait until Obamacare's employer mandate takes place.
Yeah, so maybe the tipping point's down the road where this thing kind of falls on its face, if we haven't seen that already. Well, the president, you know, he's tried to take some attention off of this. He's tried to pivot towards immigration reform this week, and he's claiming that there's bipartisan support for this. Do you think that was merely an attempt to change the subject of the national conversation, or do you believe he still thinks, as weakened as he may have been by the debacle of the healthcare.gov rollout, he still thinks he can get this done?
Well, he still thinks it can be done. You know, what about his claim of, quote, if you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period, unquote. That's what he said.
Yeah, those words are going to come back to haunt him.
Now we're finding that people can't get the same doctor that they had, that they've relied on, that they have faith in. You know, I mean, these are really, you know, if you get kicked off your health insurance and dumped into the exchanges, chances of you being able to find an affordable plan that has your personal doctor in its network are not looking that good. You know, it's... you know, it's I could go on and on. The fact is that it's a disaster.
So what you're saying, the president still thinks he can get this done, but he's going to have a hard time finding any support, maybe even from his own party, because those words that you just mentioned there are going to come back to haunt him, not just in healthcare, but in all aspects of future legislation he wants to get pushed through. Well,
his party is stuck with it. I mean, you know, that bill was passed by solely Democrat support. Every Democrat voted for it in the House and the Senate. And now they're stuck with it. You know, under this law, health costs are actually increasing under the so-called new plans in the form of higher premiums, higher deductibles, and higher copays. And let's not forget about privacy and accountability issues. I brought these up today with the secretary. You know, I suggested last April that they need to have independent verification as to the privacy of their, you know, these exchanges and so forth. And now they're having all kinds of problems with, you know, people have to give some of their personal and private information, including how much they make as a family in income. And, you know, these type of things can really be used by these fraudsters and these people who thrive on taking advantage of people whose Social Security numbers and financial figures are given anywhere. You know, all I can say is that, you know, just today, the Associated Press reported that documents showing healthcare.gov only received a 6-month security certification because it had not completed full testing before the October 1st launch date. And yet they went ahead with this knowing that this put a lot of people and their private personal information at risk. You know, there's no guarantee that the data being submitted over healthcare.gov is 100% secure.
It was a pleasure talking with you, sir.
Pleasure talking with you. Take care.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.